Okay, let's make a start. So, just sitting comfortably for a few moments without too much concern about whether it's the correct posture, but just so that you feel comfortable enough to settle in. Maybe take a couple of slow, gentle breaths if that's a help for you. And just give yourself a few moments to bring this awareness of how you're sitting, breathe in, how you're feeling, to the front of your attention. And this sort of foregrounding of your awareness of your body, your posture, your movements, is something that we want to try and maintain and cultivate through the session and beyond that, of course. Though it's not that the other aspects, the other things that are going on in our lives, the other thoughts and things like that go away, but they will tend to slip into the background a little bit. You'll still be aware of them, still be thinking about them in a way, but I suppose it's a sort of change in perspective as much as anything else. So this is something that everything that we do can kind of feed into and help us with. Now, just rubbing your hands together and tapping over your face. And then work up over your head and neck. Down to one shoulder and your arm. And on to the other side. And the upper part of your chest. Down to your belly. And relax. Let your hands rest, and starting with your head and neck, just very gentle movements, just quite small movements, nice and smooth, almost as though your neck were being massaged very gently, just turning your head a little from side to side. Not so much that you start to feel a sense of pressure against the neck. So we're not trying to stretch, but we're just trying to encourage movement. Particularly in the big muscles, the gastrocnemius that goes down the front and trapezius up in the back of your neck. Remember that necks and shoulders, upper back, get very tight in the colder weather. Go nice and easy. And then your shoulders. Feeling not just your shoulders, but chest and upper back being moved, sides a little. Going forwards. And then arms down to your sides and just slight curve in your elbows. And again, rotating in your shoulders, winding your arms around. and rotating. So you're winding up thread, string. And back the other way. Last chance. Now, a little bit forwards in your chair, and then just tilt your pelvis forward so more of your weight goes into your feet, and then push it back. As you go forwards, try and get a feeling of your hips dropping back. And what begins to happen in our back and spine, again, it's a very gentle process. There's a slight lengthening, a slight extension, and then a contraction. Just seeing if you can let that settle into a nice steady rhythm, a pulsing rhythm. Again, as though your back and spine were being very gently massaged by the movement. And just noticing the movement of your weight. We don't often think of our weight as a sort of thing in itself. The implications of that are, but we can direct our weight. So we bring a degree of intentionality to this. This becomes significant in all the movements, one way or another, but perhaps most pertinently when we're standing. And then turning a little. These early exercises are really good for developing the skill to be able to recognize what's going on in our bodies, to listen to what's going on in our bodies, and to bring a degree of intention to what is helpful for the movement. Sit back, turn the opposite way, then more of your weight will now go into this leg. It's also, of course, very important to mobilize different parts of our bodies, the big jointed areas of our body, which again in the colder weather can get very tight. So they're important exercises for various reasons. And then gently circling around. Go back the other way. Now bring yourself back and just think a little bit more about your posture. As our awareness of our posture grows, we have the possibility to begin to develop it, to begin to change it, but always very gently. If you can, sit quite forward in your chair. So the basic posture means that we end up with about 2/3, about 70% of our weight back in our hips and buttocks, the remaining 30% in our feet, with our head coming slightly forward. So if we think of our feet and our hips as forming the corners of a square, our head and our weight comes more central to that square. So we feel the support from that. But now there'll be a slight shift because you're going to raise up one foot, step out, put the heel down, lower the ball of the foot, making sure you haven't stepped too far, and can just gently press the foot into the floor. And then come back. So you step, placing the foot, and plant it, pressing in gently. And then having done that, once you planted the foot, once again, you roll the weight forwards a little bit. And then the other side. Plant in. And to plant, you need to just sort of release a little bit through your leg. The weight following on. And then alternating from side to side. Making sure this foot goes down, because as you move from side to side, you're going to need support from the leg that you've just brought back. So these are quite subtle movements. And then sit back. So that picture, if you like to think of it like that, that we brought to the foreground, that picture of in our mind, of our bodies, and as our movements, begins to become a bit more detailed. And this is again part of the ongoing process. Your hands drop down to your sides, your weight now back in your hips, turning your hands palm forwards again. Combining two of these movements, rolling your weight forwards and rotating your arms at the same time. Feeling how when you do this, when you go forwards, there's a sort of drawing in your chest and your ribs, and then opening up across your back between your shoulder blades. And then as you go back, expansion in the back contracts and your chest opens. So main driving power is the movement of your weight, but it doesn't mean that the upper body is passive. There are these very subtle changes within the upper body. And again, with that awareness in our foreground, our minds, we become increasingly aware of these subtle changes in the upper body from one movement to another, from one stage of a movement to another. So now, coming forward, leaving your hands facing back, you go back, letting your arms follow and swing through, and then going forward. So fisherman cast a net. We're still doing fairly simple exercises at this point. And so we have this opportunity again to develop the skill of noticing the changes, but also to bring an intentional quality to them. So we gradually learn to influence the movement through that aspect of our mind, through intention. Intention can include just that awareness, the information that gives us, making use of that. Could involve imagery, so maybe the name of the movements can offer something, but we also may include images. The most common one, I think, probably is that we imagine moving through water and the effect that that might have on muscles and joints, on the flow of the movement. Different ideas may help us, different views of the body. We use different images, different ideas. None of them are complete in themselves, but they all potentially have something to offer us, which we land on at any particular time. It can vary, of course. Next time from the forward position, just leaving your arms out in front like this, but coming back so your hands are just drawn up a little bit. Can you imagine there's a ball underneath your arms, and as you come back, you're just drawing the ball in towards your chest. So the arms following what's happening in the rest of the body. Retaining a quiet, still quality. We don't want the arms to get too busy because they tend to dominate our awareness. But with this quietness, beginning to notice again subtle changes, a sense of expansion coming up through the body like a wave, rising from our feet, pushing up through our legs into our belly, and then into our solar plexus, into the chest. And those subtle changes produce a movement and energy that comes up underneath the arms. They start to move up just a little bit more. And these small changes in the body are the ones that we're most likely to influence through those processes of intention that I mentioned earlier. So we start to get this integration of three elements of the physicality of the movements, the mechanics of the movement, the body, awareness and intention, mind, and the movement, the flow, the energy itself. It's not a one-way street. So it's not always the case that intention leads, because intention has to be informed by awareness, and awareness is informed by what we notice going on in the body physically and energetically. Still with that sense of that awareness of your body in the foreground. Recognizing that we do lose that fairly easily, but we can always come back to it. Turning your hands palm in, push out. That foregrounding tends to have the effect of just quietening and calming the mind in the same way that the body feels as though it's being massaged. So does the mind, and there's this calmness that begins to set in that again feeds back into the movement. So this is pigeon spreads its wings, and once again feeling that expansion upwards through belly into your chest as your back contracts, and then that reversing as you go forwards. So although obviously our arms are fairly sort of active in this, they're not isolated. And the arms are said to express the movement that's coming from the rest of the body. There's a distinct order to the movement from our feet and the ground up through our legs into the centre part of our body. In this instance, the centre is rolling forwards and then backwards. And then up through the upper body with those changing patterns, movement of expansion and contraction. Into our arms and our hands. Then, this time leaving your hands down so they're in line with your hips, coming back, turning palm forwards and push forwards, your arms just gently curving up, pushing away. So the arms begin to give a shape to the movement in its expression. And as we become more familiar with the movements, we're able to in a way hold the shape in front of us. This again is an intentional thing, and an intention for our body to flow into that shape. So pushing wave. The arms are pushed forward, they're just, elbows are down, then your arms naturally swing up. Slightly stronger feel, perhaps compared to some of the others, a kind of slightly smaller movement, less expansive, and a slightly denser feel. So there's a toning of the body, both physically, but also in terms of the energy, feel of the movement. Now combining with the stepping that we did earlier, turn in one direction, extend and plant the foot, push forwards. Coming back, place the foot down, plant it, step in the other direction. As we go through the different movements, we can become aware of different parts of the body and how they're feeling. Those parts of the body where there's a distinct flow, smoothness of movement, those parts where perhaps there isn't. And without dwelling on those latter too much, again, we can bring a sense of intention to releasing in those areas. We can imagine the flow. We can perhaps be aware of how we're doing the movement. So if I go out here, I tighten in the side there, I've lost the flow. Whereas here, the flow continues. So our movements become more precise, our posture becomes more precise. And we maybe bring in different images, water flowing through those areas, for instance, like water flowing over a rock in a riverbed is a favourite image of mine. Or maybe just that image of moving through water is sufficient. Nothing is forced. On the time. Coming back and rolling your fingers into a hollow fist. Going forwards and just rotate your arms and then back. So this is not mind over matter. When we talk about using mind and intention, it's never as simple as simply being able to think the right way, because those physical and energetic barriers still exist. But we can bring that aspect of mind and intention into the whole process through that awareness that I talked about in the very beginning. But never forced. The term I like to use is that these qualities are cultivated over a period of time. And then unrolling your fingers, turning your hands palm out, wind out and back, bringing your hands in and finishing with that pushing wave movement. Still your weight moving forwards into your feet, back into your hips. Like a wave flowing from hips to feet, feet to hips. And sort of flowing up through your body and then down again each time. And then turning your hands palm down and turn, ease forwards again, this time letting both hands push out and then swing round, settle back into your centre. And then in the other direction, again, just letting the back and your spine and then your arms and your fingers extend out gently and back. However far you extend out, you should always feel you could have moved a little bit further. And this helps to keep a sense within your body, a sense of space. You should feel that you could have moved a bit further, so this leaves space for the movement that is happening, whether we're thinking about muscles and joints, big physical mechanical movements, slightly more subtle movements of breathing and circulation and so on. And as we become more aware, there is a clear connecting movement, a flow and energy. It's not particularly one part of the body, but here, for instance, coming from your hips, up through your back, out through your arms into your fingertips, and then down, and then from your hips, but also dropping down into your legs. So these swirling circular patterns of expansion and contraction working through your body. One more time. Your hands rest. Go back to this forwards and backwards movement. There are many ways that we can view these movements. But as I said earlier, no one way of looking at these things, no one description, no one image is ever going to tell the full story. So we use particular ideas, particular images at particular times. And just for the moment, just think of what's happening here as a gentle push from your hips, a gentle push from your feet and legs, moving your weight forwards and backwards. Now for the next set of exercises, that's going to stay, but instead of happening alternately, feet, hips, feet, hips, feet, hips, the push is going to come at the same time from feet and hips. So bringing your weight back to that 70-30 ratio between hips and feet. Let yourself sink down, feel your weight in your feet and in your hips, and then a gentle push downwards, feeling it coming up through your body, pushing your head up a little bit, lengthening your back, and then down again. That same pulsing pattern of movement, of extension and contraction through your back and your spine. So be careful with this, don't strain in your back. I'm doing this quite big, so hopefully you can see some kind of movement there. But many of these movements are felt rather than seen. So sometimes we do a movement quite big and then aim to make it smaller, but retain that sense of the internal dynamic. Bringing your hands around as though you're cradling the ball, and with that movement upwards, with that expansion, your elbows being pushed out, and then pressing the ball down into water. So try not to lose that awareness of that movement downwards through your feet, through your hips. And again, it may just slip a little bit into the background, but shouldn't be eclipsed by what's happening in your upper body and in your arms. So we become aware that in order for this extension to take place, this expansion up through back and spine to the front of the body and into our arms, we have to keep that connection to the lower part of the body, an essential connection to the ground, the downward movement. So we keep a sense of the root of the movement. This is the name of this movement, rooted down. And in both directions, but perhaps particularly downwards, this sense of a real dropping of our centre of gravity down through our legs into the ground beneath us. Now, rotating your arms, turning your fingers out. The name of the movement is the Wild Goose. That's with an image of a bird in flight, offering some kind of quality. Don't go chasing after the images, and don't get distracted by them. You're not a bird. We're not pretending to be birds, but there may be some kind of quality invoked by the image. But the idea is for the images to come into that full-grounded awareness. You may find yourself drifting off. It's very common. Don't see that as a massive mistake. But when you recognise it, just gently bring your attention back into that foreground. You may feel a sense of tiredness. Part of what we're doing is stimulating the nervous system, and those aspects of the nervous system, the parasympathetic, that are concerned with rest, with relaxation, with calming, amongst other things, not purely that. And of course, one of the concerns is sleep, so especially if you've had a busy morning, but even if you haven't, certain sleepiness may set in. But again, we try and just move beyond that, bringing our attention back into a clearer sense of our bodies in the front of our minds. Parting the clouds, you ease forward, letting your hands cross in front of your knees, sitting back, expanding upwards again, elbows, drawing your fingers around in a smooth circle, and forwards and down. Final time. So this time, don't lean forward, just let your hands drop down. Feel yourself sinking into the chair again, and with that next push up, focusing on one side, expanding on that side, pushing your arm up, winding around and pulling down. This dragon plucks the stars from the sky. Changing sides. And down. One more round. Bring your hands in, sides of your arms touching the side of your centre. Expanding, lengthening through back and spine again. And then down. Muscles of your back and shoulders release, touching the side of your centre and pushing out. And back. So you're moving through water. Now this time, once again, extending your leg, but just your heel on the floor. Turn your hand palm forwards. Gently ease forwards with your hips dropping back, lengthening again through back and arms, and then hips dropping back to draw your head up, expanding in the front of your body. So coming up nice and smoothly and easily, not straining in your back and your shoulders. Scooping the sea, looking at the sky. And then, again, rolling your fingers into a hollow fist. This time your head going more upwards, drawing your arms around, grasping the tiger's ears. Slightly more tricky movement, but if you think about this, there's that expansion in your chest, as well as the push from the hips, and then chest contracting. These all combine in different ways to aid the arms in their movement. And then changing sides, same thing on the other side, scooping the sea, looking at the sky. Again, feeling how you come to the upright position, not straining or stiffening in back or shoulders. Imagine somebody sitting behind your chair, they sort of take hold of your belt or the top of your trousers, and they pull you back into the chair, and that draws your head up nice and easily. And this is something that when we come to the standing, we can really appreciate, helps us to stand or to sit in an upright stance without having to stiffen, without having to strain. And then, once again, grasping the tiger's ears. Good, and come back and sit. So moving from seated to standing, first of all, once again, these little tapping exercises, starting on your pace. And over your head and neck. Shoulder again, your arm on the other side. Upper part of your chest. Going down to your belly. And importantly, before we try and use them, after we've been sitting for a while, our legs, getting the circulation, the feeling back in our legs. And then just push your heels up, lower down. And a pumping action in your legs. And circling around. And back the other way. Okay. Excellent. So, standing up. And structurally, this is a different posture, of course, because there's not going to be a chair there. You can leave the chair there and use it to support you in the movements, which can be quite an interesting thing to do. I'm going to move mine out of the way so I've got room to move and to show you what's going on. You want your feet directly below your hips, and the ideal posture is that your weight comes a little bit forwards. I'm exaggerating here so you can see. And obviously now I'm being pulled a bit forwards, but just as though you're in the chair. We call it sitting sometimes. Letting your hips drop back, and that just brings you to the upright position. Not straining in your shoulders, very loose in your shoulders, arms just hanging to your sides. Let your hips sink down a little bit more. Bring your hands around as though you're holding the ball. Standing version of rooting down. Then feeling your centre of gravity dropping down through the ground. At the bottom of the movement, turn your hands out, going into the wild goose. And down. And then letting your hands drop and parting the clouds. So going through these three movements in a little sequence. And again, perhaps being just a little bit more aware of changing patterns within your upper body. Your legs doing pretty much the same thing, but different patterns of expansion and contraction, different pathways of movement, of the flow of energy gradually becoming apparent to you. The exercises have a lot in common, but they all have a sort of unique signature, a unique kind of echo almost within the body. And one of the developments in this art is to increasingly generate that awareness, to cultivate that awareness until really we begin to recognise that the movement is built from the inside out, not as I've been describing it, from the outside in. We start by learning the external movements because we can't see those internal movements. But the movements themselves help us to become more aware of what's happening internally. And this can often be a place where the intention is most effective. Now, turn one foot out, step forwards with the other foot, keep the width of your step. You can still see the background between my legs. And make sure you haven't stepped too long, but not too short. It's possible to get movement of the weight, but you really don't have that much space. So make sure you give yourself space, about the same in length as width, in fact. So again, roughly square. And now just transferring your weight from one foot to another. Again, that little sense of a push, very gentle, but also giving yourself a moment to settle in each leg. Don't rush this. So think of this movement in 4 stages, not 2. 2 of the stages are very obvious. It's the transfer of the weight forwards or backwards. 2 of them are less obvious because each time you arrive in one leg, you give yourself a moment to settle. We can bring in that image of moving through water again and just imagine the pressure against the front of the body as we go forwards and against the back as we go back. And again, that's a change that we can begin to recognise internally. It can almost feel like water itself flowing forwards and almost kind of pushing you forwards or pushing you back, like a wave running through the body once again. So this is not an art that is unconcerned with the external. It encompasses all these things, but it's more about where the movement begins. And again, there's this awareness of your body in the foreground, but again, not excluding what else is going on around you and in your life. Bring your weight more into your back foot, raise the front toes and just feel how you shift back a little bit further. Going forward, you notice I've got my foot turned out a little bit here. Push your back knee in, so again, there's that shift. So we started off in the chair, feeling the support from feet and hips, how that can feel in the upper body to have that support. And a very strong awareness of the qualities that we would associate with that. Then, when we stood, we looked for those qualities more over one leg, over 2 legs, and now we're beginning to look for them over 1 leg. And so now you go into your front leg, you draw the back foot in, push out again, step in hip width, put the ball of the foot down, lower the heel, plant the foot again as you did in the chair, move your weight. Bring the front foot in, put the heel down first, then the ball of the foot, then plant and move the weight. Shake out. Try that with your other foot forwards from the hip width stance. Step forwards with your left foot or your other foot. Transferring the weight first of all. Don't rush into the stepping. Take your time. Think about the 4 stages of this transfer. Transfer the weight into one leg, settling in. Transfer back to the other leg, settling in. Then you can begin to raise your toes and your heel. Again, keeping in the front of your attention, your posture. This is constant. We're constantly looking to refine posture, to maintain our body's alignment with the pull of gravity, to maintain that sense of our centre of gravity sinking our root. And also giving ourselves the time to return to that. And when we settle into one foot, that's what we're doing here. So we go forwards, we settle into the foot, and then we step, not too quickly. Step out, plant the foot, go into the back foot, give yourself that moment to settle. Those are really valuable moments in the practice. Ones that you'll find will start to carry with you out of the sessions, both in body and in mind, because they're moments of quietness, of stillness, of spaciousness. And then Stepping through, so either forwards or backwards. Change direction if you haven't done so already. Have your right foot forwards. So mirror my movements and go into the standing version of fisherman castanet. Your weight moving, drawing your arms through. Remember that wave-like movement through your body I mentioned earlier. So it's important that we don't drift off too much. You will drift off, but that's not the intention. The intention is to remain clear and aware of what's happening right now. So this is not an escapist art. The moment we're going forwards and backwards, we're facing forwards and backwards, our arms are swinging forwards and backwards. But from the front foot this time, as you go back, turn. And now your arms are being drawn across your body, that same wave-like movement. Feeling as you go forwards, that front edge of your body expanding. As you go back, the rear side. And building on that, so you expand a little bit more, pushing your arms up more, and then as you come forward, let them come down, almost brushing against your front hip, turning, expanding in the front side of your body, the right side of your body and back, and guiding the arms through this sideways figure of 8 or infinity sign shape. You can imagine the shape in front of you, the shape that your body's just flowing through. Good, and then change over. So left foot forwards, fisherman castanet. And then turning. And you're recalling that image of moving through water. And building that into the figure of 8 movement. Keeping that awareness of your body, one part of that, keeping that alignment of your body upright, not leaning over, aware of the patterns of expansion and contraction, and the movement in your shoulders, the movement in your hips, the movement of your weight. These are all features that we want to integrate harmoniously. And we're going to combine this movement with the step-in that we did a few moments ago. Again, go excuse me, forwards or backwards. I've got to go forward, so I go into my front foot, and as my arms swing up, the rear foot comes in. I step and plant the foot and go forwards again. Just a moment here when I settle in. And then you may find a comfortable raise in your foot. If you're not, leave the foot down. Don't strain for that. And then going back. And pulling your feet. Lovely. Go back to your chair. So, again, slightly forwards, feet resting down, a little bit of weight in your feet. Let your hands drop down. And then embrace tiger, return to mountain, pushing your arms out, expanding, and then drawing in. Again, chest contracting slightly, drawing your hands in now towards your chest and down. This sense of just coming back to that alert, foregrounded quality of attention to your body. But then reaching out again. As I said, it was never the intention that these exercises cut us off from the rest of our lives. Rather, we learn to cultivate the sense of harmony, the calmness, the stillness, the fluidity of movement in the midst of our lives. One more time. And then rest. And just open your eyes. Well, that goes very quickly. Thank you very much, everybody, as always. And as always, if you do have any questions or comments, please do get in touch. Bye for now.